I often find myself perched on the edge of memory, where the past wraps around me like an old familiar quilt. I am Mara, a 58-year-old mother, sculpting my identity from the man I call my son, Daniel. Every sacrifice I made was tied to him, wrapped tightly in moments that shaped us. I often feel like a statue of pure love left to weather the storms of life alone. I can still vividly recall Daniel, barely 6 years old, delighting in the little victories of childhood. The sun cast a warm glow as I taught him how to ride his bike for the first time in the park down the street. I remember the sound of laughter escaping his lips when he finally found his balance, the aroma of fresh-cut grass mingling with the exhilaration of his triumph. Those evenings, filled with energetic joys and unexpected spills, were sacred to me, each moment a building block in the foundation of our lives. Through the years, I juggled multiple jobs to ensure Daniel had everything he needed. I flipped burgers and served coffee during the days, then spent nights folding laundry and scrubbing dishes. My worn-out sneakers became a badge of honor, each frayed lace a testament to the sacrifices I made. His first school report card, boldly adorned with A's and B's, still hangs on the refrigerator door, a symbol of our shared journey. It was my gentle pat on the back when his effort shone bright, and I basked in the light of his achievements. Family gatherings were my sanctuary. I poured myself into every holiday meal, and the aroma of roast chicken filled the kitchen as I meticulously prepared Daniel's favorites. I remember one Thanksgiving in particular when I made his favorite stuffing, packed with celery and herbs, recounting how my own mother taught me to add a pinch of love to everything I make. He seemed to light up when he stepped into the house, his eyes glimmering at the sight of a table set just for him. Those cherished moments planted joy in my heart, nurturing the love I thought would thrive forever. Yet, as he grew up, a shadow began to shift over our shared brightness. I started to feel the weight of those years slipping away from me. The warmth of Daniel's laughter transformed into an echo, fading into the background of our home. It felt like a cruel trick of fate. One moment I had the whole of his heart, and in another I found myself peering from the edges, searching in vain for my place in his world. And then came the hints that unsettled me. I could sense it first at family events, subtle gestures from the people who had once wrapped me in comfort, the sideways glances cast my way, their whispered conversations ending abruptly when I approached, a veil of disapproval draping the air. This familial love I had painstakingly built began to fray at the edges. The moments where I could reach out to Daniel transitioned into missed opportunities. Each misstep felt like losing a piece of the bond we held so dearly, isolating me with each passing day. I take a deep breath as I sit in my favorite armchair, clutching the fabric tightly, remembering the days when I was the core of his universe. Now I watch, a growing ache in my chest as the glittering reality of my sacrifices shifts, evolving into something I no longer recognize. My son, once the center of my world, now drifts away, tethered to a life where his mother feels like an intruder. With each dawn, I brace myself for the reality that awaits, silently yearning for the child who once clung to me in wide-eyed wonder. The bond we crafted feels fragile, a legacy under threat, and I can't shake the feeling that my time with my son might vanish amidst a growing tide of change. The day Daniel introduced Emily stood out in my memory like a beacon, vibrant yet ominous. It was spring, the air fragrant with blossoms, and I felt excitement brewing in my chest as I prepared for their arrival. I spent the morning baking a cherry pie, Daniel's favorite, its sweet aroma wafting through the house, mingling with the fresh scent of blooming flowers outside. I wanted everything to be perfect, to extend a genuine welcome to the woman who had captivated my son. When they arrived, Emily glided through the door with an air of confidence. As I hugged Daniel, my heart swelled with hope. But then I turned to Emily, and as her smile broadened, I couldn't help but feel a nervous flutter. My initial impression was laced with excitement. Maybe she could be the daughter I had always longed for, someone I could share my joys with and connect over our family traditions. As the evening unfolded, I observed them interact, Daniel's eyes sparkling as he soaked up her laughter. It filled me with joy and an unsettling sense of envy. We had once shared a rhythm. Now it felt as though the music had changed. I watched them exchange playful banter, and each laugh he directed toward her felt like a small stone dropped into the well of my heart, echoing with the reminder of my fading bond with him. But soon, what began as charm morphed into something much sharper. Little comments slid out of Emily's mouth like knives, casually cutting through my attempts to connect. When I shared my cherished family recipe for pot roast, she smiled and suggested, "Maybe next time we could add some actual flavor, right?" Laughter erupted around the table, Dan's hearty chuckle punctuating my growing discomfort. Each sly remark felt like a chisel against the foundation of our family, scraping away at my roll. Yet, I kept my smile plastered on my face, determined not to show weakness. As the weeks turned into months, these comments multiplied. Emily began shifting family traditions that had formed the backbone of our gatherings. She introduced new themes, turning my beloved holiday customs into events that felt more like her personal showcase than a celebration of familial love. The distance began to gnaw at my insides like a hungry animal. I often found myself clutching a glass during dinners, fighting back tears while observing the laughter and connection happening just out of my reach. Each gathering felt like I was growing smaller and more invisible, as Emily's presence swelled like a rising tide, pushing me further away. I felt replaced. At first, I dismissed my feelings as jealousy, telling myself I needed to welcome her into our fold. Yet, the reality of my situation bore down heavier than I could ever articulate. The first time Emily redirected my story about a family vacation, interrupting me with her own agenda, shattered my already fragile heart. "That's sweet, Mara, but maybe we should focus on what we can do now," she chirped, her cheerful tone echoing mockingly in the silence that fell. Daniel glanced at me, confusion flickering in his eyes before he turned back to chat with her. I felt like I was disappearing, each moment that passed marking the loss of my son's attention. The laughter around the table became a cacophony, drowning out my voice and leaving me stranded in silence. After these gatherings, I would retreat into the kitchen, scrubbing dishes with fervor, while tears of frustration slipped down my cheeks, splashing into the soapy water. I longed to talk to Daniel, to express the alienation I felt, but fear gripped me. Getting dismissed as overreacting would be unbearable. Days turned into weeks, and I started noticing subtle shifts in how the family interacted. Their conversations grew quieter when I entered the room, while my heart raced with anxiety. Each family dinner devolved into a performance where Emily thrived, while I became little more than a backdrop to their lives, an uninvited spectator in a play I once starred in. In those fractured moments, I felt the sharp pangs of uninvited grief. Could I reclaim what had been lost? Or was I too far gone, an echo of the past in a present dominated by someone else? I wrestled with the reality of my situation. Each attempt to connect ended in missed opportunities, layering my heart with confusion and heartache. Despite these obstacles, I hoped to bridge the gap with Daniel. I could still reach him if I strained hard enough. I convinced myself to keep trying, to nurture the bond we once shared, even when it felt like I was swimming against a relentless current. Maybe one day he would look back and see the sacrifices I made. I needed to believe that the warmth of our shared past would lead him back to me. Yet, as I navigated this uncharted territory, I felt the uninvited presence of Emily loom larger. Haunting shadows stretched across my memories, and I whispered silent prayers into the night, hoping for a return to the cherished moments we had once built together. But every sunrise brought an unsettling awareness. I was losing my son day by day, eclipsed by a woman whose bright smile hid a growing distance between us. As I sat in the quiet of my living room one evening, the familiar ache of loneliness settled deep within me. The house felt too large, a cavernous space filled with memories that echoed through the halls. I glanced at the family photos lining the walls. Daniel's infectious smile caught mid-laughter during his childhood, snapshots from family vacations, and snapshots of birthdays filled with joy. The images seemed to taunt me, each one a reminder of what I was fighting to reclaim. In that moment of clarity, a fire ignited within me. I could not let this be the end of our story. I would not allow Emily to shadow the bond Daniel and I had forged through years of love and sacrifice. With a deep breath, I resolved to take control of my own narrative, to regain my dignity that had been stripped away little by little. The notion of confronting Emily directly felt daunting, and I knew I had to tread carefully. Confrontation was not my forte. I preferred the subtle art of persuasion. I needed to design a plan, crafted with patience and resilience, nurturing the bond I once held with my son. I visualized my approach, a series of gatherings, intimate yet purposeful, where I could reclaim my voice and show Daniel how important he was to me. I'd invite him over under the pretense of wanting to share a meal or reminisce about the past. I would keep these moments simple, filled with the nostalgia of our shared memories and nurturing our connection, instead of outright challenging Emily's role in his life. With each planning session, I set boundaries in my mind. I would listen to Daniel, giving him space to express his own thoughts and feelings. Instead of thrusting my opinions upon him about Emily's actions, I would be calm and supportive, patiently guiding him back to our bond. This way, I could avoid raising his defenses, allowing him to see the growing cracks in their relationship without hostility. I set about my preparations. I designed a beautiful table setting with our favorite family dishes. The cozy warmth of the kitchen became my sanctuary. I wanted Daniel to feel enveloped in love, the understated elegance of the dishes recalling our past moments together. As I stirred the broth, the familiar scents seemed to lift my spirits. My heart raced with anticipation, the desire to reconnect igniting my determination. But in the quiet of my planning came whispers of doubt. What if my efforts fell flat? What if Daniel dismissed my attempts, swayed by Emily's charm? I clutched my apron, the soft fabric grounding me. I reminded myself of the mantra I'd forged from these painful experiences. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. It echoed in my mind, a guiding light through the shadows of uncertainty. The first gathering grew closer, and I felt the familiar tension rise in my stomach, twisting like knots. I made a grocery list, ensuring everything was perfect. I baked cookies and prepared a pot roast, repeating my mantra as I worked, carving out a sense of resolve. On the day of the visit, I dusted every surface, ensuring that my love was evident in every corner of the home. The warmth of the early evening sun filtered through the kitchen window as I set the table, carefully positioning each dish I'd prepared. I found a moment to just breathe, letting the warm aromas swathe me, knowing I was ready. When Daniel arrived, I felt a rush of emotion spill over me: joy, anxiety, hope. He walked through the door, and I could see the semblance of a smile trying to form on his lips, but behind it lingered doubts and hesitations. I directed him to the dining room, where the table was set like a canvas painted with the colors of our memories. "Wow, Mom, this looks incredible," he said, genuine surprise lighting up his face. "Sit with me," I coaxed gently, finding courage in his recognition. As we shared our meal, I nudged the conversation toward past favorite moments: his first scientific project, our cheesy movie nights, all things that bridged that distance Emily was creating. Daniel began to open up, the crack in his armor revealing small glimmers of the boy I once knew. Yet, throughout our conversation, I tread lightly, avoiding the name of his wife while keeping my heart wide open. I couldn't push too hard. I needed him to feel secure, to know I was his safe harbor amidst the chaos. It felt liberating, yet terrifying, amplifying the stakes of my plan. While we reminisced, I saw hope flaring like embers in his gaze. Memories slowly stitched together the fabric of our connection. But once the evening wound down, the air shifted. He texted Emily to let her know he was on his way home. My heart ached, knowing that each time he stepped out of my space, he was delving deeper into a world where I felt increasingly unwelcome. Alone in my thoughts, I repeated my mantra, clutching it tightly, hoping that each word would serve as a lifeline guiding me back to him. I had taken the first step to reclaim our bond, but the journey ahead felt daunting. Each small victory was punctuated by lingering doubts. I knew Emily's presence would lurk like a shadow, but today had marked the beginning. I wouldn't stop fighting for my place in Daniel's heart. The resilience I sought now glimmered within me, illuminating a path through the uncertainty to my beloved son. In the days after my dinner with Daniel, hope mingled with trepidation. While his laughter still echoed in my mind, the looming shadow of Emily threatened our bond. I realized that to reclaim my place in Daniel's life, I needed to better understand their relationship, to see how Emily wielded her influence over him. An opportunity arose when Miss Carter, my neighbor, hosted an impromptu BBQ. I arrived early, taking in the mouth-watering aroma of grilled meats and fresh vegetables. My heart raced when I spotted Daniel and Emily pulling into the driveway. Emily exited with a practiced grace, her grip on Daniel's arm tight and possessive. I steeled myself for the evening ahead. As the gathering unfolded, I battled the urge to confront Emily directly. I observed her interactions, noting how she dominated conversations, subtly steering the focus away from Daniel. Every moment I spent observing felt like a silent plea. I needed to gather evidence of her controlling nature. "Do you remember that time we went hiking?" Emily exclaimed, leaning into Daniel as if trying to capture all his attention. He nodded, a flicker of discomfort crossing his features, but she launched into a tale, overshadowing any chance he had to share his perspective. With each laugh and every interrupted thought, I felt the emotional distance widening between us. I mingled with family members trying to glean insights, yet my focus remained riveted on Daniel. It pained me to see him reduced to a passive observer, perpetually sidelined in his own life. The evening stretched on, and as the sun dipped below the horizon, I saw my chance. Daniel was playing with my dog in the yard, the familiar scene sparking a glimmer of nostalgia. I guided him back inside, shouldering the weight of my unasked questions. "Daniel," I ventured, using my heart as the compass for his response, "are you happy?" "Of course." His tone was defensive, an answer too quick to feel genuine. A flicker of doubt chased away his grin as he avoided my gaze. "I just want to make sure you feel free in your relationship," I urged softly, watching the inner conflict play across his face. What do you mean? He asked, wary. Sometimes love should elevate us, not constrain us. I just worry that she might be sidetracking you, I replied, my heart racing, praying he'd understand. I don't want to ruin anything, he muttered, but I sensed the cracks in his certainty. Being happy is about more than just getting through. It's about feeling whole, and you deserve someone who lifts you, I whispered, my voice trembling with weight and urgency. Our conversation felt pivotal, and even though he didn't respond directly, I could see a flicker of contemplation cast upon his features. Mom, I'll think about it, he said as a promise, but tinged with hesitation. After that gathering, my conviction to investigate further grew. I began meticulously combing through social media, examining photos of their outings together. Each image revealed a narrative where Emily seemed to eclipse Daniel, her laughter filling the spaces he should have owned. I noted how he appeared smiley but distant in every photo, a marionette in an elaborate show instead of the participant he used to be. Desperate for clarity, I began journaling incidents that showcased their interactions, meticulously recording how she maneuvered through their lives like a skilled puppeteer. Days passed into weeks, and I focused on crafting opportunities for just the two of us while continuing my observations. I invited Daniel over for dinners, movie nights filled with nostalgia. Each time, I worked to reconnect, but Emily lingered in the corners of my mind, her presence like a heavy fog. The real turning point emerged during the upcoming town fair. I knew Emily would want to attend, but seeing it as an opportunity, I invited Daniel. Let's relive our family traditions, I urged, hoping that nostalgia would draw him back to me. When we arrived, the lively atmosphere buzzed with possibilities. The vibrant colors and sounds wrapped around us like a warm embrace. But soon, Emily arrived, her energy dominating the space. As she glided toward us, her engagement with Daniel felt more like a tightening grip than a warm welcome. I could sense his body tense under her presence. Looks like you two are having a blast, she chirped, her smile bright yet calculating. I felt another piece of our connection slip away as they exchanged glances, Daniel's expression faltering beneath her scrutiny. Just reminiscing, I offered through a strained smile, eager to tug my son back into the warmth of our shared laughters. But Emily had her own agenda. We should make new memories too, right, Danny? She chimed, pulling him into her orbit once more. Oh, for sure, he replied, but the enthusiasm was absent, flickering like a flame in the wind. Determined, I stepped in, challenging myself to push straight to the heart of the matter. You know, it's important to embrace the moments that matter the most. You should feel free to be yourself without feeling pressured. His eyes widened, caught between loyalty and self-reflection. Love is about lifting each other up, I continued gently. Do you feel that with her? In that moment, the shift in the air was palpable. My heart raced, hoping he could break free from his own ties. Though the ride spun around us, I felt steady amid the chaos. I wanted him to realize the truth enveloping their bond. That night at the fair was both illuminating and agonizing, a delicate balance of hope and fear. I watched as fragments of our family history flickered between us, drawing closer even, while Emily continued her dance around the periphery, striving to overshadow our connection. Yet, as I stood with Daniel, I recounted the spark of truth that had ignited inside me. It was my determination to cultivate a path toward reclamation, one where love and connection would help us rise above the darkness that threatened us. As the lights twinkled around the fairgrounds, I vowed silently to unearth the connection that still lay buried beneath layers of manipulation. I wouldn't stop fighting for the bond that once flourished between us, a light I refused to let be extinguished. The days after the fair felt like a precarious dance, each step filled with hope, yet shadowed by uncertainty. Daniel's laughter still echoed in my mind, but I knew that reclaiming our relationship required more than memories. It demanded action and connection. I let the realization guide me. I needed to create a space where Daniel could find himself outside the confines of Emily's influence. That Sunday, I developed a plan meticulously crafted around Daniel's strengths. I arranged a dinner for just the two of us and went all out, preparing his favorite meal. The delicious smell of rosemary chicken wafted through the air, mingling with the warmth of nostalgia. The dining table was adorned with old pictures of him and our family, milestones, birthdays, unguarded laughter, all of which encapsulated the joy we once shared. When Daniel stepped through the door, his eyes widened in surprise. "Wow, Mom, this looks amazing." I smiled, feeling the warmth spread through me. "I thought we could take a trip down memory lane." As we settled in, I encouraged him to share stories about his life, the ups and downs, his aspirations. "What dreams are you holding close?" I ventured gently, needing to know what resided beneath the surface. He hesitated, the fork suspended in the air. "I don't know. I guess I've been focused on making Emily happy," he admitted, a shadow crossing his face. "That's wonderful, but what do you want for yourself, Danny?" My tone was calm but urgent. He blinked hard, his gaze distant. "I don't even know anymore, Mom." I felt a pang in my heart. "You're allowed to find your own happiness, sweetheart. It's okay to prioritize your dreams. What brings you joy?" He rubbed the back of his neck, a sudden tension visible in his shoulders. "I used to want to travel, capture the world through my camera. I think about it, but I keep putting it aside." I seized this opening, my determination growing fiercer. "You should chase that dream. You're so talented, Danny. Your voice matters, and you deserve to share your lens with the world." As the evening wore on, a flicker of something ignited within him. Possibility. I sensed that the walls Emily had built were slowly starting to crack. But this spark needed nurturing, and I would need to gather more evidence, draw connections, and fortify his sense of self before the pull of Emily's influence completely subsumed him again. On Monday, I took a bold step. Knowing how fond Daniel had once been of his high school friends, I reached out to Mark, his old best buddy. I invited him over to reminisce, softly steering the conversation toward reviving their friendship. "What do you think about inviting Mark over this weekend?" I suggested casually, watching Daniel's reaction keenly. Daniel's eyes brightened. "Yeah, that could be fun." The excitement spilled over, and I knew I was on the right track. As Saturday approached, I spent the day preparing snacks, music, and even looked up some old games they loved. When Mark arrived, the spark between them reignited, laughter filling the room like a breath of fresh air. It felt like home in its essence, a reminder of the boy he once was, before insecurities crept in and influenced his sense of self. As they exchanged stories about their youthful escapades, I settled back, observing, my heart full. Mark's presence seemed to distill some clarity for Daniel, reminding him of who he had been. I watched the joy beam from his face, unfettered and genuine. Their conversation naturally flowed to plans for future adventures. "You should come to that photography exhibition with me next month," Mark suggested. Daniel's eyes sparkled, and I felt hope swell within me. "I'd love to," he replied enthusiastically, the weight of decision lifting from his shoulders. I saw the flicker of self-assertion begin to glow brighter. Days melted into each other as I kept orchestrating moments for Daniel, forging connections, weaving old bonds. I started noticing shifts, answers on the tip of his tongue fought against Emily's edicts. It wasn't easy, and there was much to navigate. The dance with Emily was inevitable. She had thorns, sharp and unyielding. One evening, when family dinner turned chaotic, I felt the tension start to wrap around us. Emily cut through the conversation sharply, her tone biting. When Daniel laughed at a story I told, she shifted her gaze toward him, her eyes narrowing. "Don't get carried away, Danny. You need to be more practical," she quipped, slicing the moment of joy in half. In an instant, I could feel the strain in the air, the burgeoning conflict rising. I leaned forward, my heart racing, ready to confront. "He's allowed to enjoy himself without having to stretch himself taut, Emily," I asserted, my voice calm yet firm. "We can't condemn laughter for the sake of practicality." For a heartbeat, the air felt electric with challenge. Daniel's eyes flickered between us, uncertainty churning. Emily let out a forced laugh, but there was nothing light-hearted about it. "It's called being realistic. You know that, right?" she said, her demeanor sliding into hostility. I took a breath, holding my ground. No one is asking for unrealistic dreams. It's about nurturing joy. Love is about lifting one another, not belittling their happiness. In that moment, Daniel met my gaze, the realization dawning that he could stand firm in his truth. "I'm allowed to be happy, Emily," he asserted, his voice steady. The room hushed. Emily's expression hardened, her facade cracking. "Whatever," she muttered, the animosity darkening but not enough to drown the light that shone around Daniel. And just like that, I saw a new Daniel emerge. The boundaries, once soft and compromising, took on a sturdier frame. It wasn't a complete victory, but it marked progress. I clung to my mantra. "They can mute me at the table, never in my heart," as a reminder that while the road ahead would be tumultuous, our connection was resilient. As I looked toward the horizon, I knew we were inching closer to reclaiming our bond, and while challenges would arise, love would guide us through the chaos. I had faith in Daniel's spirit, illuminated now more than ever, and I would fight alongside him to ensure his happiness took root once more. The weeks following our intense dinner shifted the atmosphere between Daniel and me into something more hopeful, yet delicate. Each interaction became a careful negotiation, my heart racing as I sought to fortify him against Emily's tightening grip. Daniel's newfound courage needed nurturing. I had to gently push him toward independence without alienating him from her. I opened our home more often, strategically inviting friends who uplifted Daniel's spirit, hoping the warmth of shared moments would draw him away from Emily's influence. Encouragement became essential as I nudged him toward rediscovering his passions, photography classes and weekend hikes that sparked joy within him. Each step he took away from Emily brought out more of the vibrant boy I once knew. However, her lingering hostility filled the air every time we gathered. I could sense her eyes on us, discontent radiating from her as Daniel thrived. It was as if she could feel the distance growing, her attempts to control him becoming increasingly desperate. One afternoon, during taco night at our home, I took a chance to steer the conversation toward his accomplishments. "How did your latest photography project go?" I asked, watching his face brighten. "It went really well. I met some amazing people who share my interests," he replied, pride glowing in his eyes. "That's fantastic. I knew you could do it," I encouraged, my heart swelling with joy. But just then, Emily's voice cut through our moment, sharp and incisive. "Don't get carried away, Danny. You need to be more practical," she snapped, slicing through the joy like a knife. I felt the air thicken with tension, a standoff brewing before my eyes. "He's allowed to dream without fear of falling, Emily," I said, keeping my voice calm but firm. We can't condemn laughter for the sake of practicality. Daniel looked between us, uncertainty flickering across his face. Emily released a brittle laugh. It's called being realistic. You know that, right? Knowing your own path isn't naive, I replied, standing my ground. This isn't about unrealistic dreams. It's about nurturing joy. At that moment, Daniel met my gaze and I could see something shift within him, a growing understanding of his right to speak his truth. I'm allowed to be happy, Emily, he asserted, his voice gaining strength. The room fell silent, electricity crackling in the air, and I felt hope rise as I witnessed a new Daniel beginning to emerge. Emily's expression hardened, her facade cracking under Kenneth's newfound confidence. Whatever, she muttered, her irritation palpable, but it was no match for Daniel's light. This night marked progress, a firm step toward reclaiming our bond, and I clung to my mantra. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. I knew we were forging a resilient connection, moving closer to the love we once shared. In the days that followed, I orchestrated small gatherings that nurtured our bond. Each story we shared and each laugh echoed in the air, reinforcing our ties. Yet, I could sense Emily's frustration boiling beneath her surface, akin to water nearing its boiling point. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon, Emily entered the kitchen. "Are you really throwing another party? You don't think that's a bit excessive?" she questioned, disbelief etched in her brow. "This is about Daniel and recognizing his achievements. He deserves it," I replied, firmness wrapping around my words like an armor. "Recognition. You think he should be the center of attention? That's unrealistic." Her resentment simmered, her voice climbing a notch. "Why is it unrealistic? Daniel has worked hard. He should be celebrated," I shot back, unwavering. In that moment, it felt as if we were locked in an emotional duel, but once again, I felt a rush of resolve. I wouldn't let her negativity stifle Daniel's budding independence. As the party approached, Daniel became more excited with each passing day, energy radiating from him like sunshine on a crisp morning. It was clear he was ready to embrace this celebration, embracing the space we were carving out for ourselves. On the evening of the gathering, our home filled with laughter and warmth, and I could feel the electricity as friends arrived, each ready to uplift Daniel. But I noticed Emily's unease as she entered, the discontent lacing her expression. Despite her attempts to undermine our moments, Daniel sparkled that night. Engaging in conversations, sharing his work with passion, he came alive, each word a brushstroke painting a picture of determination. "Let's hear more from Daniel. What's his latest project?" one guest prompted, redirecting the spotlight back where it belonged. The light in Daniel's eyes shone brighter as he spoke, detailing his experiences and dreams. I watched him draw strength from the love surrounding him, each support bolstering his confidence. Emily's composure began to crumble under the overwhelming positivity, her frustration rising as she attempted to regain attention. Yet the collective energy of encouragement swelled against her harshness. "Why can't you just be realistic about your career?" she challenged Daniel, her words sharp, but the edge had dulled. Even amidst her tirade, I felt Daniel firmly rooted in his truth. "I'm embracing possibilities, Emily. My passion matters," he said, not backing down. While Emily's tension lingered, I could see her grip on Daniel loosening, his radiant spirit overpowering the negativity she had wielded for so long. As the night drew to a close, I caught Daniel's eye. His radiant smile spoke volumes, washing away the darkness we had fought against. I felt a wave of peace settle within me, solidifying my conviction. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. Together we would navigate the challenges ahead, facing the world fortified by the love we had reclaimed. As the dust settled after the gathering, I felt an undercurrent of tension, like a coiled spring ready to snap. The celebration had emboldened Daniel, yet I knew a confrontation with Emily was inevitable. I suggested he invite her for coffee, a chance to lay everything out in the open. My heart raced as I prepared for what could become a pivotal moment. The aroma of coffee hung thick in the air as I set the table, trying to quell my anxiety. Each object, the delicate china and fresh flowers, seemed to mask the heaviness of our impending conversation. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart, I murmured to myself, seeking strength in my mantra. When Emily arrived, she wore a composed exterior, yet I sensed her unease beneath the surface. We exchanged pleasantries, but the tension gripped the room tightly, and soon Daniel took the lead, attempting to address the elephant in the room. "I wanted to talk about some things you said the other night," he began, his voice steady despite the quiver of nerves underlying it. Emily swiftly adopted her defensive posture. "What is there to discuss? I was just trying to help you not get your hopes up," she shot back, eyes narrowing. "It's not just about that," Daniel responded, determination coloring his tone. "Your comments made me doubt my choices. I need your support, not skepticism." I could see him struggling to assert his voice, and I felt my heart swell with pride. Support should uplift, not stifle. "We're trying to navigate a path together," I interjected, reinforcing the bond we shared. Emily's posture stiffened at my interjection. "And what do you know about internal conflict?" she snapped, her eyes locking on mine with a glint of resentment. "It's not about me. It's about Daniel finding his way," I replied, firm yet gentle. The challenge hung in the air, charged like electricity. Daniel, encouraged by my support, continued. "It's okay to worry, but I need to embrace my passion without fear of failure. Your criticisms can hurt more than you realize." Caught in the depths of his honesty, Emily faltered for a moment, the tension shifting palpably. "But what if you fail?" she asked, vulnerability trickling into her voice. Daniel leaned in, his gaze steady. "Failure is part of growth. Without trying, there's no chance for success." The air thickened with pent-up emotions. Emily's walls began to show cracks as vulnerability seeped through. For so long, she had held on to control tightly, but now I saw uncertainty flicker across her features, an acknowledgement of the fears she had projected onto him. As our conversation unfolded, I felt a fragile sense of hope growing. Emily was facing her own fears, feelings tucked away in layers of sharp words. "Maybe I've been too harsh," she admitted, her voice quieter, almost breaking. We remained silent for a moment, the weight of her confession hanging delicately in the air. It was a pivotal moment, one that had the potential to shift our dynamic. "I need you to believe that I can manage my own life, Emily," Daniel said, his voice imbued with sincerity. As I glanced at Emily, there was a hint of softness in her eyes. It felt as though the room had taken a collective breath, the walls closing in on her, but her resolve softened ever so slightly. "I only want what's best for you," she said, a tremor betraying her strong tone. Daniel nodded thoughtfully. "I know, but what's best for me is sharing joy, not feeling stifled by fear. I want your support, not your judgment." In that moment, I could sense a shift taking place, a fragile connection beginning to rebuild among us. Living in a world of judgment had weighed heavily on Emily, but here was a chance to transform. As the conversation drew to a close, there was an acknowledgement of vulnerability among us, creating a new space for understanding. "We can work through this together," I ventured, eager yet cautious. I saw Daniel's spirit shining through, stronger than before, and Emily, while still rigid at times, was beginning to entertain the idea of a more supportive approach. The air buzzed with possibility as I silently repeated my mantra. They can mute me at the table, never in my heart. In this moment of reckoning, we stood on the edge of renewed connections, set to face the world together. Each of us ready to embrace a new beginning, rebuilding a bond through love and understanding.